Welcome to another episode of Talking TSR. I am your co-host Chris, and to my virtual left, as always, is Rick. Rick, say hi to everybody.
How are you doing, folks? How's it going, Chris?
All right, we have a very, very special guest
Mm-hmm.
tonight, and we're going to get to him in 1 minute. We will not linger a little bit. I do have a couple of housekeeping announcements we want to get to, so there'll be plenty of time. So a couple things, everybody, welcome to the show. First of all, if you guys are not aware, we are running a Kickstarter right now for 5e and a DCC version of the classic module Dark Tower, originally published in 1979. So if you guys have not checked that out, please go check the Kickstarter out. We would greatly appreciate that. Second big announcement, Origins Game Fair is coming up in just a couple of weeks, June 8th through the 12th. So we are going to have a booth there. We're going to have some spectacular things there. So if you are in the area of Columbus, Ohio, please check us out. It's going to be exciting. The Sunday, the 12th, is actually our next show. And I will actually be traveling back from Origins that night. So we will have a special announcement later on about how we're going to handle that. We're doing something a little bit different. So stay tuned for that. So, all right, we don't want our special guest waiting any longer. This is a guy who really needs no introduction. If you're a Goodman Games fan, an old TSR fan, the name Erol Otus probably is like chocolate and peanut butter. I mean, it's perfect together. Classic artist extraordinaire. Erol, welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, it's great. We're just so pleased that you took time out of your schedule to spend some time with Rick and myself.
Yes.
We have a bunch of questions we're gonna ask you in the classic interview style. And then we have this show is going to be a lot of art, folks. We're going to bring up a lot of classic art. This is all going to be artwork from the old TSR days. So we could have shown image upon image from DCC and some of the recent stuff Erol's done for Goodman Games, but we don't have that kind of time. Maybe that's another show or something at some point down the road. So let's get right into it. So Erol,
yes.
When did you start playing tabletop role-playing games, specifically D&D? What do you remember an actual date? Were you a player? Were you just an artist?
Yeah, we started. We had been playing, chit war games on hex maps, things like that. So we were going to our local game store and we saw a chainmail book show up, and we thought we'd try that, and we didn't grab us. And then we got the box set, the D&D box set, and that was in '74.
Okay.
And we did start playing that, and it was really good. It was like magic. We were so excited we didn't even need to like shout or show excitement. It just like took over my life pretty much.
Wow. And so did you play a lot? I mean, were you playing several times a week? Were you playing once a week? I mean, how much were you playing?
It's harder. Well, I mean, we would get together, I think, at least once a week, at least. More if we could manage. And then I would also be working on, I was playing in games and working on games. So, I would go home and draw and, treasures and monsters and maps and things. So I was spending most of my free time on D&D related things at that point.
Excellent. Did you play other tabletop role-playing games that were starting to come out at that point, or maybe a few years later, or were you pretty much D&D fantasy?
Yeah, pretty much D&D, but I mean, at that time I played in Dave Hargrave's games a little bit later than that. So he, it was essentially D&D, but he had his own rule sets and things. And then also played a little with the Chaosium guys. I played some, I think it touched RuneQuest with those guys and their board game, Greg Stafford's board game. But at that time it was mostly D&D, mainly almost all D&D, just with different groups. I mean, I actually had 3 or 4 different kind of groups that I would go around to and play.
Excellent. All right. Do you have a big part of what Rick and I do on this show is we'll select one of the old classic TSR modules, and then we will spend an hour and just talk about it. We talk about the art, the maps, the plot, the encounters, the whole 9 yards. Do you have a favorite classic TSR-era, late 70s, early 80s module that you've either played in or you've run as a dungeon master, or it just has a special part in your heart that you're just like, I get happy feelings every time I hear about that adventure?
I saw that question, and it's tough, because actually I would always just make my own adventures. I almost never ran. I hate to break it to you, module aficionados, but I don't think I ever ran a module. That might not be true. I might have tried it once or twice, and I played in a few, but not enough to really, be qualified to answer that question. I have like favorite artworks for the modules, but I don't think an answer to that would do justice to them, because I'm not an expert on the contents.
So we hear that a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously TSR was actually kind of late to the game on publishing modules and adventures.
Really?
Because they were like, who would want to buy something like that? The joy of early D&D is creating a module.
Oh, you mean when the box set was out?
I mean,
it was first
we've
edition.
heard that in several where they were kind of like, why would we even produce that? It's like the whole part of the game, the whole enjoyment of what they thought the whole enjoyment of the game was that, but there was just people didn't know how to do it. I mean, playing D&D is not something where you can sit down in 15 minutes, read those rule books and be like, we're up and playing. No,
that's true.
Yeah, not at all. All right, Rick, we've got a question that came in here, interestingly enough, from Lore Suto. Okay. And this is a question for Erol. On the back cover of L1, The Secret of Bone Hill, there's a painting of a Hydra with wings that's not in the adventure. Can you tell us anything about this image? And I forgot about this image. I should have put this one in there. Do you recall anything about?
So is that a Secret of Bone Hill? There's no Hydra in the module, but I painted a Hydra.
Yep, and it's on the back. It's full color on the back.
I know. I don't know why I did that.
That's a mystery. I remember we discussed it when we did that module on our show. We discussed that specifically.
Where's the Hydra?
Like, yeah, and there's no Hydra in the module anywhere. It's for like levels 1 through 3, and no Hydra anywhere to be found. So
if it helps, back in the day, it did make me want to buy the book. So
oh, cool. Well.
So turning to your art, when did you first become an artist? Was it a situation where you were drawing from a very young age, or is it something you kind of fell into later on?
Yeah, young age. I can't, some of my earliest memories are drawing and actual memories, not like feelings that I think I can remember. So I don't know when I started. There's like little drawings of scrabblings when I was barely, I couldn't write yet, but I was drawing stuff. That's probably true of a lot of people. But yeah, never. I can't remember when it started, and I never stopped.
So for you, it was always, that's what it was. You were going to be an artist.
Well, I mean, when you're really young, you're not even thinking about that. It's just fun. Sure. And then eventually, that's what I was really hoping for. But it looked pretty tricky to do such a thing.
Yeah.
So when it finally happened, I was pretty happy.
I bet. So what would you say was your first professional assignment as an artist?
That's a good question. So I think Dave Hargraves, he hired me to do artwork for Arduin. So that might be the first one. But at the same time, that same year, 76 or whatever, I had some things published in the Dragon. So those two probably, I guess. Okay. Yeah.
I think we have at least one of those too that we're going to flash up on the screen in a bit. As far as your style, were there any key artists that inspired you, or did you just kind of do your own style?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of artists that I think about and that do inspire me, but it's not just artwork, right? It's like TV shows, movies, but yeah, Dr. Seuss. I mentioned this a lot, but what the heck? Dr. Seuss, Bernie Wrightson, Frazetta, Roy Krenkel Jr., Moreau, Kandinsky, and then I think a lot about some of the they were under, ugly stickers, monster cards by Basil Wolverton and things like that were coming out, when I was in the whatever third grade, walking past the little market, you could buy those things, and they were really wild looking. And they were also making a Rubber Monster series out of a lot of those ugly stickers, and those were also a big part of my life. I've been collecting those my whole life, and the shape and form of not plastic, not hard plastic. That's a rung below for me. The kind that are squishy,
Yeah.
that you shake around and they move on their own just a little bit. Yeah. That kind of creature.
I had a bunch of dinosaurs like that.
I was going to say,
dinosaur things.
Our younger viewers may not remember, but I remember having metal molds and actually making these.
Oh, creepy crawlers.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, no,
it
was such a good time for that art too.
Too dangerous.
Well, yeah, that's it. But it was such a good time, I think, in the 70s and the 80s for that art, because you had Boris and Frazetta and these people doing these covers and these sticker art and the Mad Magazine with crazy art and all this stuff. It was just great.
Right. The Warren horror magazines as well, and other kinds like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely the Warrants. So your style, has it changed over the years, or do you feel like have you felt it evolve in any way, or do you feel like you've stayed very consistent?
I don't have a real good answer to that. I think it does evolve, but it stays the same at the same time.
Okay. I get a couple questions in the chat. I want to throw them at you. So this is from G Blaster. Actually has two questions, Errol. So his first question is, do you have a favorite piece of art that you did for TSR? And then the follow-up question, which has really nothing to do with that, is, did you collect comic books when you were younger?
Comic books? No, but I did collect the Warren horror magazines. And they had a lot of great color covers, but inside it was all black and white. Oh no, that's not true. They would have an occasional color story in there too. Absolutely, yeah. Richard Corbin did some great color stories in the Warren magazines.
So like,
and the other one is tricky because go ahead.
Like Creepy and Eerie, those magazines.
Creepy and Eerie, exactly. And Vampirella, and
and
I think a bit later, Heavy Metal was
absolutely.
But Warren was going, long before that. Favorite artwork, geez, for TSR. That's so hard. There's so many.
We know.
I like. So
there's so many.
I'll pass on that for now, and then mention when favorites come up in the.
Okay.
There you go.
That sounds great.
Yeah. Brought back some good memories with Heavy Metal magazine there too. So I'm sure this, that especially when you said, as soon as you said Corbin, I thought of Heavy Metal. I was lucky enough to have an older brother who faithfully bought Heavy Metal for many years. So looking at your TSR years, how did that come about? Like, what brought you to work for TSR?
So yeah, we like I said, we have been playing D&D for several years, and we were buying the Strategic Review, a little pamphlet there, and in one of the issues they announced that they were going to come out with a new magazine called The Dragon, and I can't remember why that fired me up. Maybe they mentioned there was going to be color in it, because I think they might have mentioned that, and we're going to have color because the Strategic Reviews were all monochromatic. Sometimes it'd be purple or whatever, and so I started sending artwork in, just unsolicited drawings and things to their address there, and I claim, and I'm pretty sure it's true, I didn't hear anything from him. This was before the internet, obviously, and I sent stuff in, and I subscribed to the Dragon right away. So I got issue number 1, and then when issue number 2 arrived, the monster I had sent in there, which was statted up, and it was the Remoras, and I opened. I had no idea that was going to happen. I was just like, I was floating on air. But anyway, so I guess a little while after that, they had Trampier leave. I guess he quit the art department, and they were looking for a new artist. And I just got this phone call from Dave Sutherland, like out of the blue. I had no idea what was going on. Said, yeah, because I guess my stuff was floating around the office because it had been published in the Dragon and things. He said, hey, yeah, you interested in maybe working for us? I'm like, yeah. I'd like to do that. He's like, well, you want to come on over? And I'm like, well, I'm in California, and he was like kind of surprised at time, like, but they yeah, I think they flew me out there, interviewed, and then I came back briefly, got my stuff, and went out there and moved to TSR.
Do you remember what year that was?
79.
That was 79. Okay. Wow. That's fascinating.
That is great. Yeah. Well, it's lucky for us you sent that unsolicited work in.
Me too. Me too. Yeah, it's amazing how, hopeful and you just think like, wow, this great things could happen, but sometimes they don't.
I think it's amazing that they published a piece of your artwork and that you didn't even know about it. And
I don't think I knew. No, I had subscribed to the Dragon. I think after that we started getting a little bit in communication. With each other.
We've talked about that, those early days, no internet and information, the discovery of walking into the game store one day and just seeing the latest new module, which you had no idea was coming out or whatever. And just what that feeling was like, where nowadays, months, weeks in advance when this module is coming out and whatnot. So
yeah, it was a certain kind of magical element to that.
Yeah.
It really stresses the importance of art, in those days, because you weren't reading reviews of products online, and you weren't seeing, a lot of times the first time you saw a book is you saw that cover, you saw that Hydra on the back cover or whatever it was,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think I found an ace paperback with Roy Krenkel Jr. It was like Out of Time's Abyss, Edgar Rice Burroughs. And that just, that just set me off to the dime store, and I discovered like, wow, there's dozens, hundreds of these, all with great covers. And I really liked I was an avid reader, so I really liked his stories. And right next to him were Robert E. Howard and the Frazetta covers. And they were really cheap too.
Yes, back in the day. Yeah. So we did a show on like the Monster Manual and the Fiend Folio. And there were those back in the original Monster Manual, not every monster had a picture. And we made the comment on, because it seemed like it was definitely a trend, that if it didn't have a picture, the monster might have been really cool, but it didn't seem to be remembered as a classic, to the fans. They all remember the classic ones, but we were going through some of our favorite ones. We're like, well, this one didn't have a picture, probably why it never like took off, because again, when you're a 12-year-old looking at this, you see that picture of what it is. It just completes it for you, as opposed to all the
But I think I have a question for you. Did you guys, when you were going over that, doing your research on that or whatever, did you find one that you wished had been illustrated?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like what, do you remember?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. What was? Geez, I've got my book right here.
Yeah,
all right. When you're answering the next question, I'll let you know.
Yeah, because we mentioned it during the show that there was a couple.
And
I think they got most of the good ones, but I bet there are a few in there that really deserved it and that didn't get drawn.
Exactly.
Because it's amazing, when you first see that first illustration for a monster, how it can really imprint itself on you, that you thereafter you think of the monster in terms of that illustration as that being the classic representation of the monster. Or at least I'm like that. So
yeah, no, I agree. Like a lot of this stuff in the Monster Manual, Trampiers, just on top of being amazing, we're also like imprinted.
Yes. Okay, ask the next question.
Yeah, all right. Let's keep. All right, while you're looking, so what was when you were working for TSR, what was a typical day in the office like? Do you have any like stories you could share about that, or just what it was like?
Well, I mean, now I just thought it was, now I think it's funny. And at the time I didn't think anything about it, but we punched a clock at TSR.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we would walk in, punch the clock and then draw. Like I was since it was so wonderful and amazing, I I didn't do anything, like no chit chat, just draw.
Oh, wow.
But then punch out, because you had to go out to eat lunch and then punch back in it to the end of the day.
So it was really like a walk-in, head down, and
Yeah. For me, I mean, that's how it started. Yeah, I think
Mhm.
later on, once there was more than just me and Dave Sutherland, there was a little more social
Mhm.
aspect to it. We would talk a little bit, and listen to music and things, and yeah.
Wow. Now, rumor has it that you participated as a DM in TSR's fourth annual Masters tourney at Gen Con, which I'm not sure what year that would be, but do you recall that?
Oh yeah, but I don't remember what year it was either, 81 or 80.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was wonderful. I didn't realize it was the fourth one at that point. I think it was the first one that I participated in and heard about, but it was great DMing for the player judges, Gary Gygax and
Mhm.
I think Jim Ward and Brian Bloom. I think those were the guys. And Gary seemed to enjoy it quite a bit. And that was my impression. Jim Ward too. Brian Bloom was a different. Yeah, he was working hard to make me screw up, which I guess is part of their job. And I think I screwed up something about he threw pepper at one of my monsters, and I didn't have like the AD&D rule response to that down, and I think that's why I didn't finish higher. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, I think you went against a bunch of heavy hitters, so to speak, in the DM and some of the other DMs. So that's great. What a memory.
All right, so in perusing through the original Monster Manual, the nymph had no picture, and I remember that when typically everybody's like dryad. Nobody ever talks about nymphs. Nobody ever uses nymphs in modules. No artwork. The Slithering Tracker, that was one that we brought up, and just how cool of a concept that creature was, and probably overpowered quite a bit. No artwork, and really kind of forgotten when further editions kind of moved on. And I know there was a bunch of old oozes and things like that. So that was part of that part of that too. So yeah, there was a couple of ones that we I remember we talked about the Slithering Tracker actually in some quite a bit more detail. So okay. All right, so I think we're going to move. Let's just check the chat to see if we've got any specific questions here. Yes, the Masher did not have. Yes, the Masher did not have a picture in the Monster Manual, and I remember that. Yes, because I talked about that. I like the Masher. Okay, I don't think I'm seeing any. Yep, because we already did that. We already kind of handled that G Blaster. Okay, so I think we're gonna just start showing some really awesome artwork.
Yeah.
And then we're just gonna talk about it. So Elena, if you could pull up the first one, the Moldvay basic set cover, which is right over my shoulder. You probably don't even need it. So we're gonna give a second or two, that will pop up. So this is the classic dragon fighting the wizard and the warrior, and just I'd like you to, so this is Errol, this is my favorite piece of yours, bar none. Actually, if you remember a couple of years ago, Joe asked you to sign a vinyl poster that some fan purchased at GaryCon for a lot of money. That was me. I have it prominently displayed in my gaming basement, and I typically use this picture as my avatar whenever I need to, because this reminds me of two of my classic characters, and this is the box set that I grew up on in '81. So tell me a little bit, and I want to hear about your thoughts about color in this, because I think that's what really gets me on this, is the vibrant colors in this picture.
Okay, well, first of all, I think that we're missing part of the picture there, right? It's cropped,
probably
pretty heavily cropped there.
Yes.
This is like maybe the image from the booklet rather than the box.
Yes, I believe that's
because the box has what I liked about this picture is not entirely there, because you've got the adventurers, the monster, and then at their feet there is the treasure chest that we don't see.
Yes.
And I was pretty happy with that. It was all kind of told the story of D&D gameplay in a sense. Like it's not it's I mean, it's not an altruistic. Sometimes it's a combination, right? Of we're going to save these people by rescuing and killing the monster, but most of the time it's about getting the treasure. and hopefully magic items and things. And this one doesn't. This one at least has some treasure, and sort of it tells a little bit of a story. The colors I can't explain. No, sorry, I can't explain it. It's just like I would just do it, and I wouldn't think about it, and I would look. And if it was good, if I was liking it as I was going along, I wouldn't change it. But nowadays I have a much more deliberate approach. Like I never used to do this before. Now I'll make color studies ahead of it.
Okay.
But it's because I'm much more. We're more worried about things, like not coming out right. Like back then, it's like just full speed ahead. I didn't think about ever failing, although I did many times. But now I would actually make a plan and I'd change it, etc. before starting the final. I would do sketches before.
Okay, I was just going to ask that.
I would do sketches for the composition and what was in the picture, but I wouldn't do color studies. So
okay.
Wow.
Okay. Fascinating. All right.
Yeah, this is good stuff. I love it.
Yeah, take it away, Rick.
Yeah. So if we could get the next graphic up, the Barrier Peaks cover, Alana, for the module expedition, the Barrier Peaks, you did artwork. It has a sort of multi-armed plant creature surrounded by people fighting it. I was wondering if you could tell us anything about that.
Well, when I look at this one, I mentioned this strategic review earlier, and one of the coolest things in that was the Sturmgeschütz versus sorcery. I don't know how to say it right. It was about the Nazis versus the orcs and the trolls, and that was just the coolest thing, I thought. And when Barrier Peaks came out, it had a similar flavor, merging, in this case not World War II, but science fiction and fantasy, and I really liked that a lot. And so, when possible, I tried to highlight that. And with this illustration, it's like the warrior's got a sword, right? But he's like, well, I will shoot the laser gun, and that'll be just fine, type thing. Yeah.
And before we move on to the next one, we do have a question again from Laura Suto. A question for Erol. Do you still have any of those sketches from those original like TSR art pieces where like you have sketches from a cover or something?
Well, a lot of this, not much from TSR, although I do have some from things like the dragon covers I did, because those were all stuff with the dragon. Wasn't actually as a staff artist for TSR. Those are things I would do after leaving, work, doing it at home and things. So I have all the stuff there for the Dragon 55 and some other things I did for the dragon.
Okay. All right. Sorry to interrupt there, Rick. Take it away.
Yeah, no, I'm still thinking on the art. It's just, I love that cover so much, because like so much of your art, it's so dynamic. Your art tends to have so much going on in it. Some artists depict things in such a static style, but your images are always so dynamic. I think it's one of the reasons I love them. Also in Expedition of the Barrier Peaks, there was a creature called the Froggy Moth, which was like the frog from hell, which has become really just absolute classic creature and favorite of Chris and mine.
It's a good concept, the Froggy Moth. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, well, so yeah, I mean, I just think, let's see, is that picture up there?
Yeah. Elena, can you pull up the third one?
Could you? Yeah.
I'm not sure if you pulled it up and it went down already.
Yeah.
I think lots of people can.
Yeah. So I mean, he's ready. This creature, what you can tell, he's up for it. He's ready for fun, and I just thought it was a really neat concept. And actually, what I thought it was how fortunate it was that I was able to reprise it in the Goodman Games deluxe hardcover box set, and actually show him swallowing somebody, which is something I should have done.
Nice. That is that's a classic module, and I think that's that's another case in point right there of a monster that became a classic because of that artwork in it. And that illustration booklet in there was full color, so there were several of them were full color, and I think that made all the difference because you just had that beautiful color palette there. So awesome. All right, so Elena, if you could pull up image number 4. This is the cover of A4 Dungeons of the Slave Lords. Now Dungeons of the Slave Lords is probably one of Rick and I's favorite modules from the Slaver series. We love the concept. We love most of the monsters, the new monsters that were introduced, and we're gonna get to those shortly. But yeah, we've got the guys going to town on the Mycanids, which is interesting because Rick and I look at Mycanids and we think non-combat encounter, we think interaction, and we think melding and everything. And here we have on the cover, we have them just attacking and brutally, saying. So any comments on that one? Or
could we bring it back up?
Elena, can you bring that one back up for a second? So yeah, because that is an
so this one is definitely one of my favorite module covers. Absolutely. I mean, I love Fungus Men. Some friends and I actually a couple of years before this created Fungus Men, before the Mycanids in Booty and the Beasts. Or wait, come on, bring it back up. I have something to say, and I want to. I have stuff
to quick on the trigger there
to directly relate to people seeing it while I'm speaking about. Thank you. So what's neat about this to me, besides that it has Fungus Men, is that it's got like these three kind of life and death vignettes, where we have what I consider, hopefully, sympathetic to the plight of the Mycanids in the foreground, right? This is not fair at all. And then more of an even struggle in the midground. And in the background, the Fungus Men rule supreme. And I just like that. The three different probable outcomes. Anyway, thank you for leaving that up there.
That is amazing. So okay, so the next one, we're still in module A4.
Yes.
And if you can bring up image number 5, this is the Cave Fisher. Also one of Rick and I's favorite monster designs of all time, and I don't know why I love this guy. It's so kooky and it doesn't seem to make much sense, but for some reason I really love the fact that you can pull characters up off the ground and reel them in. I just loved it. So what can you tell about this black and white piece from the interior of the module?
Well, can you tell me why was it kooky? I can't remember. I remember
it has it behind its head, it had the mechanism so it could reel in its filament once and it could pull up 400 pounds, and it would glue itself to the stone so that it wouldn't be pulled off. I guess probably early playtest, probably a character pulled one off and there's we'll fix that, we'll glue these things down.
It did show the feet glued to the stone there. And
I mean, I love
that picture. I really like the mist actually that receding down the crevasse. That's actually what strikes me about
picture.
Although it's a good cave fisher too, but I just like that the way
I love I've noticed in some of your illustrations you're not afraid of unusual angles or showing us distance or height, and I think that's what really sells this piece, is just that crevasse below. It's wonderful.
And I think the next piece we're going to get with another different perspective, which I think is just really fascinating, which I don't think you saw a whole lot of back then. So this is image 6. This is oh no, I've got it wrong. It's not this one. Yeah, it's going to be the next one. So image 6 is the group photo, the group photo of the slave lords from A4. And I love this one. Just because of the detail, all the varied detail between each of the slave lords is just fantastic. And you get a sense of their culture, you get a sense of their equipment, you get a sense of what kind of character class they are, all in. Again, you could look at this picture for 20 minutes and just keep picking out new details about this one.
It's just crazy. What a crew, what a motley crew. I don't remember, were they all together like that ever, or were they?
They were on a boat. Am I getting this one wrong?
It just seemed like they're so different.
They
wouldn't hang out together like they
there was
are
different
in
groupings
this
of
picture.
them, Yeah.
There was an encounter where they were all on a ship and they
Yeah.
were the PCs can run into them, but they all had tremendously varied backgrounds. There was one was like a pirate, and it was just they were all like completely different, and I love that. I've used that. I've actually requested art for some of my books along those lines too, to show off. Usually player characters are pre-generated PCs where I'll have all the pre-gens kind of standing there like shoulder to shoulder, like they're posing to take a picture. Not that you did that back in the day, but definitely
that's what that kind of looks like.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
So,
that's the kind of illustration that saves the DM a lot of trouble. You can just show it to the players and say, this is what you see. This is what they look like.
okay, I have all right, so I believe this question is, I believe, back to the cover, A4 cover. It says, is the man in the foreground based on Lawrence Schick, the author of the module?
So yeah, I've been thinking about that and some other modules, because I think yes and no. I think yes and no because these are the people that I was around. I wasn't thinking of Lawrence Schick at all, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't coming through my brain, since it was his module and things like that.
Yeah.
And the reason I think about that as well is because of, I forget what's the Castle Amber by Moldvay. That giant, his face, that looks like Moldvay. Again, I wasn't, thinking about that when I was making it. I wasn't
interesting.
I wasn't, but he was around, we played games together and I was working his module. Who knows?
Okay.
So it not specifically, but I see why people think that it might have been not intentional.
Okay, you're up next, Rick. And this is the one I was talking about with perspective next.
Oh, sure. We're on the Micanid, right?
Micanid, yeah.
Yeah. So if you could bring up illustration 7, Elena, of the Micanid. And this is also from the Dungeons Slave Lords.
Yeah, well, I mean, I like that one a lot. It's like kind of mysterious. Again, I love my fungus.
Yeah, I love his eyes. I love his eyes looking down.
Yeah, he's working.
Yeah. I
And
love it.
Such good use of black and white too. There, I love it's almost like a silhouette. It's so cool. All right, moving on to another classic. Now we're going to switch to a hardcover book here.
Yes.
If we could get up graphic 8A, Alana, this is the Deities and Demigods cover, which had this wonderful wraparound cover.
Probably going to want to keep this one up for a while too. There's a lot going on.
There's definitely one of those. It's illustrations got things going on in the background and in the foreground, and very recognizable cover to a lot of our audience.
Well, I mean, my favorite part of this, probably not surprisingly, is the worshiping going on in the back cover.
Yeah.
I think that's to me that has the most power, the most to offer. The guy is committed, probably his undoing at the same time, but that's true of a lot of things in the Stonehenge. Yeah, I like the back mostly, and the gods in the sky, and then the architecture surrounding the little fellow with the green wand is pretty cool too. It's kind of, I mean, it's echoed on the back cover too, but it's kind of ancient and also otherworldly. Like, reminds me of some of the things on Star Trek. Like,
yes,
it's
especially their
some
old
culture that isn't advanced, but they're making these things that are look kind of in between. Anyway.
Yeah. No, that is great. We do have another question from Laura Suto. I think this is back to the Micanid one. So he's wondering if he or she is wondering if this is pencil or charcoal. If you worked in, were they pencil or charcoal, black and white?
Which one are you asking about?
I'm assuming he's talking about
the Alchemist, the Micanid.
Alchemist, the Micanid. Yeah,
that one looks like good question. I think that was a combination of pen and ink, and then also some pencil.
Okay.
Weirdly, and probably one of the only times I did that.
Okay, awesome. All right. So next we're gonna pull up 8B. So we're still in the deities and demigods hardcover, but this is actually Cthulhu.
Yeah.
And a little interesting story on this one. When we were talking about this one, I wasn't sure this image was by Erol because I got fooled by the background. His signature blended in kind of with the architecture there. And I remember, and when we got everything together for this show and we sent the images off to Erol, and he said, "Hey, how about the Cthulhu one?" And I was like, "Oh," and I was like, that's yours." And then as soon as he said that, I looked down, and it's almost like I looked right down and saw the thing, and I was like, "Wow, that is like it just my
Yeah, you
mind
stuck it into the corner there.
yeah tricks on me." So tell me about Cthulhu. Was it like getting to do artwork on the great old one himself?
Oh, well, just overall doing the Cthulhu Mythos was another dream come true. So that was wonderful. And this one is probably obviously, but it's Cthulhu dreaming in, and I apologize for the pronunciation, Relea, however you say it. But that's what I always thought of when I would think about Cthulhu. And back then, there wasn't a lot of Cthulhu illustrations for me to compare of. And many years later, like decades later, I would look up Cthulhu and I would see mostly giant Cthulhu striding up out of the ocean. And I was like, what the heck is that? Because I'd read a lot of Lovecraft, but for some reason, I never thought of him that way. I always thought of him as a sinister presence down there influencing you. Anyway, that's what this is about.
Cool. Take it away, Rick.
Sure. Well, we'll stick with the Cthulhu monsters then. Also in deities and demigods, and now I'm going to screw up the pronunciation. He did an illustration of Shub-Niggurath.
No, that one's easy compared to Relea.
Oh, okay.
Shub-Niggurath. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we could get up 8C, Elena, because that's illustration that's one of those that's got a lot going on. I look at the detail in it, just amazes me.
Well, yeah, this is definitely one of my favorites, if not my favorite black and white. But again, it's hard to, I see something and I'm like, oh no, wait, that is my favorite. But this one's the one I think about a lot. People ask me what the favorite is. And when I was looking at this recently, I thought, actually, maybe I thought of this before, but there's a paperback of Clark Ashton Smith's Hyperborea book, and the particular one that I had a cover with a cavern with stalactites and stalagmites and little things roaming all around the cavern. And this was definitely, not the Cthulhu part, but those elements were inspired by that picture. And I looked really hard to find out who that artist was, but I don't believe he's mentioned. So that's too bad, but he's very good.
Yeah, no, it's just such a another illustration that the longer I look at it, the more I find. And I remember spending many long minutes looking at this, in my youth.
Right. No, it's got like a lot. It has some things in common with abstract paintings in the sense that, there's a rhythm, and a balance to things that isn't necessarily related to the content. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Excellent. Rick, why don't you take the next one, because we got some personal favorites coming up and we want to make sure we...
Oh, sure. All right. So I think we've got one more from the Cthulhu Mythos. Could you put up 8D, Elena? So I know you were the person to do the Cthulhu Mythos in this book. I just want to say.
Oh, thank you.
The Great One illustration was just, to me, outrageously good, and the Miga and everything was, I'm not sure which way we get this. There we go. Yeah, I'm not even going to try to pronounce this one, but another one with a lot going on. Another old one.
Yog.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think too much about this one beforehand, but as I look at it now, it's just, what strikes me is this is happening, outdoors on a sunny day. We have some daisies in the foreground, and I think that rocks. Yeah. This thing would come out, on a sunny day and do its thing.
Love it.
Yeah, it looks very idyllic. If you look at the right side of the picture, you kind of see the, the princess frolicking in the field, and then all of a sudden there it is.
Things went wrong.
All right. Next one, if we can pull up number 9, Dwellers of the Forbidden City cover. This might be my second favorite
Yeah,
piece done
that's
by
such
you.
a good cover.
I'm a huge Frog and Bullywug fan. And I just I don't think there's enough frogs on covers. And I love I was a big fan of Gnome Illusionist back then. That little guy blasting the frogs probably was my inspiration, and probably all of my Gnome Illusionists probably looked like that, from the early 80s to probably the late 80s. So tell us a little something about that one.
Well, this is, I mean, I really like this one because it's another one, and I did a lot of them like that, where I really wanted to show, the gameplay, if you will, after, the pregnant pause, which is absolute valid and great way to do fantasy artwork. But I always, once D&D ramped up and stuff, I was like, yeah, and then what happened? They looked at each other, and then what happened? And and I think this one doesn't really have the balance in terms of outcome. I think the characters are going to win this one.
Yeah.
But the guy might have trouble. But he's intrepid, the adventurer in the foreground. He's not bothered. You can look in his eyes. He's like, "Hey, my arm."
Yeah.
There, but I get the sword right in here.
And he's got 2 arms, so if he loses one, he might.
Exactly.
He might
That's why we have 2.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh, excellent.
So good. All right, now I'm going to go on to, which is probably my favorite, or definitely up there, which is the cover of, you could get up illustration 10, Elena. This is the artwork for the Lost Caverns of Chasojkanth, the cover of that with the Behir fighting the adventurers. It's absolutely one of my favorite pieces. If I ever bother you to sign something, that's what you'll get from me.
Yeah, no, I love this one. It's another one of my favorites too. So I love the lightning hitting the shield. It really feels like it hit the shield. And then I also like the agony on the face of the guy getting strangled. You can tell that's not good.
That's a bad day.
But yeah, and the dragon, the Behir, his expression is really pleasing to me. Things are going his way.
Yeah. And this is another one of those monsters where, again, was not in the original Monster Manual. It was in this module, but it was in Monster Manual Volume 2, but is probably one of the more classic monsters that we have in D&D that's been moved forward in edition, and everybody loves to use them. And probably because of this cover artwork would be my guess on that, because
really sold the creature to so many people, because again, the details, it's such wonderful detail, just the electricity arcing from the shield up to the spear. It's like, I can't express how much I love that piece.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I like it too.
All right, so if we can pull up the next one, which is 11. So this is our first true pastel module cover. We've got the whole module, so we can kind of complete the whole picture here. So my question is, this is the hidden shrine of the, say it, Rick. Temochin. Thank you. So obviously, this is a pastel. So can you tell us a little bit about when you're doing this one? That's going to be, I assume that's 2 colors, or is it like a mix of colors? I'm not sure. I'm not an artist, obviously, but how is this different than doing a full color piece or a black and white piece?
Let's see now. So this is actually kind of the main topic of all the
we're gonna get to the other ones too.
So do you want to
we could wait on that until we get to those other ones
of the playing playing aids,
which are going to come,
and then we'll cover what's up with that and the playing aids in just a minute or a few minutes.
Okay, cool. That sounds good to me.
Another fabulous art. Okay, can we pull up illustration number 12, Alana? This is Loth or Draw. I wasn't ever sure if this was Loth herself or
I think so.
I think it is.
So it's kind of, with
it was her in her drow form.
Despite her garments with the
she's got the, for me it always was, and I love the menace and the bulk of the demons. So what can you tell us about this one?
Uh, well, I think it is the contrast of how docile they are with her, but how they're looking at you. That kind of tells the story of the challenge, kind of, if you will.
Yeah. That's what I get out of it. I get out of it is
Yeah.
three chums hanging around with each other
Yeah.
that are obviously very friendly, very different, and yet the two chums on each one chum on each arm are just looking to eat you.
And that's it. There's that sort of whatever dichotomy there that you have, they're, to me, they're so menacing and just seem so dense and big and muscular, and they're flanking her, who, she seems so graceful. And growing up with the Monster Manual, we were so used to seeing these demons singly in illustrations, and this was one of the first illustrations I recall seeing several demons kind of together, that were different, with somebody regular size, presumably. So it's just such a wonderful illustration.
Thanks. I think also there was which one was it? Was it Dave Sutherland's Paladin in Hell? Maybe those were multiple devils rather than demons. I can't remember, but he did it.
Yeah, he did the one full page piece, right? With a Bone Devil and Ice Devil, I think.
It had multiple devils.
Another wonderful art.
Okay. All right, so our next one we're going to bring up, I've got a really fascinating question on this one. This is number 13. This is the Gibbering Mouther from module C1. So my question on this one, so this was pretty clearly, well, maybe not, but it seemed like the author designed this monster and then you illustrated it. Is that the way this kind of happened? And when it did happen, like, did they describe in a lot of detail what they were looking for, or was it just like, this is what I want? Like, how was that process when you were doing something that somebody had a pretty clear vision of, instead of you like going off on your own? Or did you just go off on your own on the Gibbering Mouther?
I think for most of the monsters I did at TSR, the designers had designed it at their time and then would describe it. I think that's the majority, and that was really fun for me back then. Now I've much less, or much more of an interest in making things up on my own. But back then I felt like this is my job, and I love it. And I think it was Harold Johnson and Jeff Leeson. I can't remember who described what, but it's just like, it's got lots and lots and lots of mouths and lots of eyes. And
okay, we do have a question from OSR Grimoire. Erol, can you tell us about that illustration of a castle that appears in an early issue of Polyhedron? Was it done for Palace of the Silver Princesses and never included? Does that ring a bell?
Was the Polyhedron the
RPG?
RPGA, yeah. And I remember cover I did for them. Gamma World related cover and some Gamma World related interior illustrations, but I can't remember the illustration that OSR Grimoire is talking about. You guys?
And Laura Sutho, I'm going to hold on your question about Zipatone because we're going to get to that and near the end. So we're going to hold that question. We will come back to that. So okay, I think we're back to you.
So
Rick.
Illustration number 14, if you would, Elena. I snuck this one in because, again, another personal favorite of mine. I think it's from the Rogues Gallery. I can't even say 100% off the top of my head. It is, but looks like a druid battling a mind flayer and kind of hitting him with an insect summoning spell, I guess.
Creeping Doom.
And I honestly, this one struck me as not exactly your normal style, and yet I absolutely love it. I don't know if it looks a little more realistic to me, or something about the mind flayer, I don't know, struck me as I don't know, maybe more black and white use. I don't know what it was. I had to double check that you did this piece because I always loved it. So what can you tell us about this one?
I think, you've said it all, really. Druid versus Mind Flayer and Creeping Doom, not Insect Swarm.
There we go.
Right?
Yeah.
Insect Swarm was the aerial.
That's true.
Aerial thing. And I don't know. I mean, the inking technique on the flesh of the Mind Flayer is something a little different than I had done at the time. So maybe that's what you're seeing.
Yeah. I mean, I love it though. It's so, the blankness of the eyes in contrast with the detail of the skin is so, and you can tell how much I play a druid from the spells, right? But
I think a lot of people get confused between Creeping Doom and
yeah.
Sex Swarm because they, could be names for the same thing.
Okay, so the next 4 images are all kind of similar. You guys will see what I mean in a second. So if we can pull up 15A, the permanent character cover, green. So this is back to the pastels, and this is a series of 4 pastel pieces of art. And I just want to, I'm fascinated by this, and a lot of the early TSR modules were first pastel modules, and then they were later on released with the full cover and everything. So I'm just fascinated on how this process goes on, how you design these with the one color, and then do they match the color of the book afterwards, or how does that all happen? How does that magic happen?
Yeah, hard work. It was hard work, and that's why I kind of like these, and to much on one you brought up, because so the idea was to get color in the printing but do it el cheapo.
Okay.
So you wouldn't need the color separation, in the 4-color printing process. But the artist had to make, depending on, I think each one of those is 4 black and white illustrations that are then designated as a particular percentage of the color, and you kind of have to wing that. And then they're aligned with little registration marks, It's like this is like primitive. It was really cool at the time. Now, like layers in Photoshop and you're done. It's like nothing.
Wow.
But back then it was really tricky because the registration can get off, and you're also kind of guessing at your percentages. I think after I did several of them, I got a little better at predicting how it would work.
And so did you do that whole process beginning to end, or did somebody else take that part over, like after you gave them?
Once you hand it off to the printer, but before that, you do it. Actually, that was one of the early things that Dave Sutherland showed me, and I remember just being, fascinated by this and really excited to do it. And after several of them, I read, this is actually quite a bit of work.
I was gonna say, obviously cheaper to print, but obviously took you longer to do.
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah. So got it.
And looking at it, it's such the art is so impressive on these. You don't even think in terms of them saving money or doing like a duotone or whatever you want to call it with the with the color. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, it was a unique look and added to the whole variety of the product. So it was definitely a good thing to do.
Elena, can we pull up 15B? This is the blue one, the NPC book cover, and we can show that one off.
I love this one. So
yeah,
this might be my favorite one because so the initial one is the drawing and the inking that's going to be black, right? And then the other 3 are different shades of the blue.
Okay.
And I just for me it's fun because it made the cloudy images kind of work a little better without any black lines.
Yeah, definitely. That definitely picked that one up. And then if we can pull up 15C, this is the player character sheets cover, the pink/red. I think it's more pink, than.
Yeah, it's not red.
Yeah, we're gonna get
another one of these.
Yep, red. And then if you want to, Elena, if you want to pull up the last one, the 15D, the adventure log, red, which is just the kind of the zoom in on the the picture of there it is there. So
there you go.
Right, and this one is also probably one of the better ones because it's got that. I love that cutaway ant farm thing like Dave Sutherland did on the Monster Manual cover.
Yeah,
the things it's like a really, really entertaining way to do it in illustration.
All right, so now we're gonna go to the blast of the past. So this is so this is going to be image number 16, Elena. This is the Ankheg from Dragon Magazine number 5, I think it was 1976. Look at that. That is, and the stats at the bottom there, if you guys can see it, the stats are included all at the bottom. This is just amazing. Love it. Do you have any anything you can share about with this? This was for their creature feature.
Right. So 76. So this one actually came after the Remoraz, but this one then was the first time my writing had been published because I created the creature and wrote its little write-up and And yeah, back then I was still just sending stuff in
Okay.
into the Dragon.
So,
and again, I can't remember now. I think I might have known in advance that they were going to print this one.
That's amazing. That's
yeah, I know.
I know. I'm shaking my head over over that. And we actually, I think that right. Our next illustration, we do have the Remoraz.
We do. Yep.
If you could put that up, Elena, the one that comes before this. In my notes, it just says Dragon Magazine. I want to say Dragon, the Dragon 2, but
oh, it's 2. Yeah, it's 2.
All right. I was going to say I'm pushing my memory there. So this, I'm assuming, has to be one of your very earliest pieces, I guess.
Well, this is the first color illustration that I had published, and like I said, I had subscribed to Dragon before they had started. I got number 1, and then I got number 2, and I saw my picture in it. Yeah, and I was really happy. And I don't remember if whoever wrote it up was credited in that issue, but I think later it turned out to be Rob Kuntz. Although maybe with Gary Gygax, or maybe Gary just handed it off to Rob. I'm not sure about that. Something for the scholars.
But I'm sure you were delighted to see it.
Oh God, yeah.
And how old were you that, if you don't mind my asking, how old were you when that came out?
16.
Yeah. Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So amazing. Elena, if we can pull up number 18, this is Dragon Magazine cover number 55, and I have a very interesting question on this one. So if you can keep this one up here. So again, this is cool. So is that the same gnome and the same fighter from Dwellers of the Forbidden City cover? Because that gnome looks awfully familiar.
Well, the gnome, that whatever it is, figure, just really speaks to me, and I don't think it's the same guy.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay. No, that was not the intention, but it's the same spirit. I didn't think of that, but now you mentioned the fighter is a little reminiscent of that guy.
Yeah.
But again, it wasn't that wasn't intentional. But I just like the whimsy of the caster with that hat. And and that was actually the only Dragon cover that I ever did. Okay. I was commissioned to do another one after I left. I think that might have been one of the last paintings I made while I lived in Lake Geneva. Certainly the last freelance one I did. And then when I moved back, I was doing a few things like that, RPGA, polyhedron artwork, and they wanted me to do another Dragon cover, and I painted it up and I sent it to them, and then they decided not to use it because it had human embryo earrings. The draw was wearing that, and they were still real skittish about content. They did print it, but it was in interior color illustration.
Okay, yeah, that's great. And how long were you at TSR for? What year was it?
79, 80, and 81.
Okay, all right. Rick, you want to take away the next one?
Sure. And we are getting to the end. I realize we're wearing you out, but we're loving this. You also, if you could get up illustration 19A, Alana, you did some artwork for Revolt on Antares. It was one of the mini games that TSR put out, I want to say in the very beginning of the 80s. Probably one of the better ones too, because I know you did also like piece art. I think you and D, I believe, did the art for this game, but
Jeff did the cover for this one, and I did at least this black and white, which was like a 2-page spread. But yeah, I like it. It's got a lot of different characters and scenes blended together, kind of like a movie poster or something.
So definitely. And then if you can pull up number 19B, that's the original zip tone. I'll be honest with you, I don't know what zip tone means. So we had a question earlier on that as well, asking if you preferred to work in zip tone. So I guess maybe if you can tell us a little bit about that process.
Well, I mean, now it's, of course, it's unnecessary, but to get like an even gray tone, there was zip tone, which was like letraset. You know what that is? So you would cut you know, the shape out of adhesive film that had that pattern on it, and then stick it on your illustration.
Wow.
And that would create this halftone out of a dot pattern. And that's different than creating a halftone in those pastel images with the different colors. It's a different process. It would just be, the image would be black and white and the dots would be right there, but you would cut them out of a sheet. And the letters that I mentioned is the same thing with letters. So if you want to make some nice letters, you would cut and then paste them down. Yeah,
Fascinating.
don't have to do that anymore.
I was going to say, all those people using Photoshop now, they don't know what they missed, right?
Oh, it was really fun. I mean, it was like there's something about it that I definitely think is better with Photoshop if you want to do something like that. But there's something kind of I don't know what the right word is, but a time that you have to take to do it that adds something.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what, but like I don't know what to call it, but there's a Japanese black and white ink technique. And to start with, you actually make the ink by taking this little sort of solid stick of black material, and you kind of rub it in this trough, and you make your ink before you even can begin to draw, which I don't do anymore. But I remember doing that because I had it, someone gave it to me. And it's actually interesting. You make your ink, and while you're doing that, you're thinking about what you're going to do. And there's some value in that.
Yeah.
Maybe not as much as the time you spent, but there's something added. Like when you're mixing paint, you still have to mix paint to get a particular color. It's similar to that. You're thinking about not just getting the right color, but other things.
Interesting. Oh, fascinating. That is great. Well, you're getting a lot of love in the comments here. Folks are definitely you know, I could sit here for the next 5 minutes and read you all the compliments that you're getting. So
yeah.
But we thank you. That is the end of our art show for tonight, everybody. I hope that you guys enjoyed kind of that walk down memory lane and seeing all those wonderful art pieces. And Rick, you want to give us a couple announcements on our next show?
Sure, absolutely. Well, first off, obviously, thank you so much for joining us, Erol, on the show tonight. We're delighted,
a lot of fun.
Delighted to have you. Folks, if you like what you're watching, of course, don't be afraid to give us a like or give us a subscribe if you're watching us later on YouTube. It does help us out, and keep those comments coming. Our next show will be coming your way on Sunday, June 12th at our regular time at 8 p.m. Now, Chris is actually going to be coming back from the wilds of Origins. So I'll be holding down the fort with a guest host because I didn't want to, subject you to me speaking alone for an hour. So guest host Mike Ferguson will be joining us. Mike is an old Goodman Games alum with a great knowledge of the old TSR stuff. So it's going to be a fun show. And we're going to go into the Ghost Tower of Inverness module C2. And again, that will be on June 12th.
Great. All right. And I think we're going to wrap up with our pearls of wisdom, and then we will call it a show. So do you want to go first, Rick, or do you want me to go?
Sure. All right. Well, I would say just simply inspired by Erol's just beyond inspirational art. I would advise the DMs out there to not be afraid to use graphic accompaniment, not to be afraid to use illustrations. As much as we sometimes think of this as a game of the mind, a theater of the mind kind of experience, some of the classic modules like Expedition the Barry Peaks with the illustration booklet, or even newer things like Goodman's Games, Crypt of the Devilich, has shown us how important illustrations can be and how wonderful they can set the stage. If you can, take art from Erol or one of our great, any of these classic artists and show your players and really immediately get them, into the scene and let them envision, what they're seeing. I think it's just so helpful and it sets the stage so nicely. So that would be my pearl of wisdom.
And my pearl of wisdom is I learned something tonight, folks. I learned a lot about the art process. Obviously, I didn't know much about how those pastels were done, and then some of obviously the backstories and everything. So just I guess it's kind of generic, but hey, always be ready to learn, and always be willing to learn, and never never stop learning, because it's like you'll always get more and more out of it, and then bring that to your game table, I think, is probably the thing. With that, we are going to sign off. Errol, thank you so much
Thank you.
for
Thanks again,
spending an
guys.
hour plus here, illuminating us
Nice
on these
job.
classic pieces. We had a blast. This was a great show.
So much fun.
Yeah, so thank you very much, and to everybody, a good night, and hopefully I'll see some of you folks at Origins in a couple of weeks. So everybody take care.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.